Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. I am Jack. I was the front-end engineer and a product management person. So our project was Ghostwriter, the solution to your blank canvas. And so what this project does is it takes what you have written and it provides some inspirations on what you can write next. So some genres we have are fantasy, romance, horror, historical fiction, dystopian, and science fiction. So let's test it out. So let's say you're writing a dystopian novel and you have the insert, the bird flapped its wings. You can see, let's say you don't know how to continue this. You can ask it to generate, and after it magically thinks, it will produce 3 different outputs and inspirations dystopian wise on how it can continue. So it's spun up into its belly, its fat body clipping its tail. It's all kind of dystopian-esque, but it still follows the bird. But if you're not satisfied with that, or you want a different genre, you can take us back. You can try fantasy. You can see what that generates. And again, this is if you're stuck writing. If you don't know what to write, this can help you like produce additional thoughts. And you can see fantasy-wise, Fangs and Claw, I'm calling, said Harry. This is your stupid war you've twisted over the last few months. So it's all in its own fantasy world. And yet again, it's still connected to that bird. And we can try one more genre if you want to take us back. Sci-fi. And we can see here some sci-fi bird action going on. And it will produce suggestions like as though it was been a special within the 16th century, the 9 or 6 days approximately. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it'll give some inspiration on what you can write in the future. So I know you guys want to try it out, and if you have any questions, you can as well. But let's save this for the end. And now I'm going to give it off to Yasmin for our team's inspiration.
Hello, I'm Yasmin. I am another front-end engineer. I helped with the website design of this project, and I am also the president of my school's creative writing team. So I've met many writers, and no matter what their style, age, experience are, they've all dealt with writer's block. And it's a big thing that we all have to deal with each meeting, because there's bound to be at least one member of the club which is dealing with it at that moment. And a common solution for writer's block is to outline and brainstorm, because most of the time when it comes to writer's block, it's the problem of perfectionism, or you feel pressured to create a really good first draft, first try, and create something just that doesn't need revision, but that's just not realistic. So using Ghostwriter to create this prompt and then have a starting point already and then slowly refine it into something that you like, that is much easier for a writer than, say, to try and come up with something on the spot without scrapping it immediately. Now, as for the actual technical side of what's happening with this AI and how it's generating the prompt, I'm going to hand that over to Ojas.
All right, everyone, I'm Ojas, and I was a backend programmer for this project. So pretty much my job was to work and train, develop the AI, and I'll explain how we did that. So first off, the AI we used was the Luther AI 125 million parameter model. And if you don't know what that is, you don't know what text generation AI is, pretty much AI that are designed by smart people, and they pretty much read in data and they're able to output certain things. So if you know GPT-3, that's very well known right now. It's very hot. It's not open source, so we use the Luther AI, and also the Luther AI, you're allowed to use custom data. So what we're able to we got the Luther AI, we fed it some custom data for our genres, and then we're able to use that to train our models. So if you look on the website, each genre is actually a different model. So we did this so we can specialize in different niches for each model. So each model went through around 15 books worth of data. And if you see at the bottom, that's the function we used to train the data. It took around 4 to 5 hours for each thing. So what we did, we would compile all the data from all the books, we put into one big file name, and then we would train the file. And then from there, once the model was completely trained, we could put on the website and it would be working as intended. And for the the gathering the data part, I'll hand it over to Charlotte, who can explain how we gathered all our data.
I'm Charlotte, and I was a backend engineer and a data analyst. I collected and organized data, made sure it was clean to use, and also made edits and contributions to the overall code of our AI. So as Ojas mentioned, we first chose around 15 books for each genre. The genre in which we placed these books were fantasy, romance, horror, historical fiction, dystopian, and science fiction. So for a total of 6 genres, around 90 books would constitute our data set. After selecting the books, we began to change them to feasible data that we could work with by converting PDF files of the specific books that we found on Google to TXT files. Then we concatenated the files under each genre into one file, ending up with one big file for each genre. So here's some images showing how our data set looked like and the specific books that we used. So if you look at these files, you might wonder why we chose these novels. Well, we took 2 things into consideration when choosing what would comprise our data set. First, we considered what we would like to see as our output. More specifically, which authors and books we wanted our AI to train on. Then we took a step further to consider our stakeholders, specifically the people who would use our ghostwriter and if they would be in agreement with what we wanted. So with these 2 general yet fundamental considerations, we came up with books like 1984, Fahrenheit 451, and Divergent, for example, under the dystopian genre. I'll pass the floor to Nick, who will elaborate on some challenges that we faced.
Hey, I'm Nick. I was working as a backend engineer as well and an infrastructure developer, which meant that I was connecting the programming to the website and troubleshooting and fixing problems throughout as they came up. And there were some issues that we had to deal with, such as a short time constraint, difficulty adapting between devices, like between mobile and desktop, errors in the website code, and just bringing it all together. So here I have the main code for the project pulled up. Now, what would have been optimal would have been to have this part right here, which picks the AI model to use based on the genre the user selects, and this part right here, which generates the output for the website, and put those 2 into different functions, which are separated by these things right here. This would have a higher this would allow for a higher word count in the output. As you can see right now, the max word count is 65, and allow for a faster computing time. However, within the time constraints, we weren't able to find a way to allow variables to be saved between functions, so we had to cut our losses and combine them. Now I'm pulling up the code for the homepage of the website, and in order to make all of our files, such as images, like you can see right here, load on the website, we had to change and add a lot of functions and parameters. So those are the issues that we've come across while working on Ghostwriter. And with that, I'll leave it to Thomas, who's going to talk about what we'll do in the future.
Thanks, Nick. My name is Thomas Perez, and I was in charge of the web development for our project. While our current model is out, there are still many things in store for the future of our product, and that is what I will speak to you all about today. The first thing I wanted to discuss would be grammatical coherence. Being a machine that requires little human input to evolve, the abilities of Ghostwriter have inevitable flaws. In the future, we hope to solve this issue by retraining the model to better improve accuracy and contain more grammatical structure. In tandem to that, I also want to touch on our plans for expanding our services. There are over 130 million ebooks currently circulating the world, each containing various corresponding literary styles and genres. If we had the time, incorporating all of these together would be beneficial in gaining a more precise catering to our authors. Thirdly, I would like to talk about the interior body of our product. Since our model was trained on various literary works from versatile authors, using the powerful 1.3 billion parameter model would be useful in Ghostwriter's text organization. With this model, we can gain more data from our genres and comb through data more efficiently, factoring in more accurate and concise results. Finally, accessibility. Ghostwriter Mobile is one of our current projects at work. With the digital age leaving everyday individuals to carry both laptops and cell phones, the ability to access our writing ideas anywhere could greatly improve our site's navigation. While mobile is still functioning, we hope to better enhance the experience by being able to access our ghostly inspirations everywhere and at any time. That being said, I would like to thank my team, or currently displayed on the screen, for smooth collaboration efforts in the development of our product and the roles that each engineer has played. I'd also like to thank our wonderful instructor, Alex, for helping us along this 3-week journey. Now I'd like to open up the floor to any questions regarding Ghostwriter, or if anyone would like to give a prompt idea to try.
That was
Any of
awesome,
these
guys.
any of these 6 genres, anything to write, any ideas at all?
What were the fantasy books trained on? Do you remember?
Let me pull that up.
Okay.
Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, Chronicles of Narnia, and Lord of the Rings.
Okay, can you pick fantasy and do Gandalf approach the elves? Alex knew this was coming. If you can't tell, that's a Lord of the Rings map in my background.
Yeah, for practice, before we got our data sets all set up, while we were just testing out the AI itself, we used Lord of the Rings as a baseline for testing.
Yeah, I literally have a Lord of the Rings book like no further than 5 feet away from me at any point.
Gandalf fell in love with the elves.
Yeah, he did. Wow, this is not a Tolkien original, but I'll accept it as canon.